Good evening and welcome to JW3 Online for our second How They Made It Through. We are JW3, the UK's first and only Jewish community centre of its kind. I am Joe Hyman, the young JW3 programmer. If this is your first time watching a JW3 programme, then welcome. And if you're a regular, then welcome back. We have just launched applications for our young JW3 advisory group. And if you'd like to get more involved at JW3 and add your voice, check out our website and apply there. This series explores the stories of Jewish entrepreneurs and how they are adapting their businesses to respond to the changing world. It has been generously supported by Genesis Philanthropy Group. And tonight, we have a brilliant panel of 3 fantastic entrepreneurs from across different sectors. I'm delighted to welcome Angelica Malin, Editor-in-Chief of About Time magazine, founder of the About Time Academy, to host tonight's discussion, and each of our panelists. Welcome.
Hello. Hi everyone, how are we doing? I'm sorry that this can't be in person, it's a shame, but I hope tonight will be full of insights from our amazing entrepreneurs. I'm Angelica, I'm a journalist and author. I have a book coming out in January all about female entrepreneurship. So I'm fascinated by the topic of small businesses and entrepreneurship and excited to delve into tonight's topic. So tonight we're joined by 3 entrepreneurs who I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves because I think people always introduce themselves best. So Dina, please tell me a little bit about yourself and your work.
Hi, yes, I'm Dina. I run Dina Berman Communications. So I'm a former journalist and I work as a PR strategist. I've got a small PR agency and I also teach entrepreneurs how to do their own PR.
Great, thank you, David.
Hi, and thanks for having me on the panel. David Benningson. I'm the founder of a business called Signal AI. I founded the business in a garage, of course, that belongs to my parents, where else do startups begin. It's a software and artificial intelligence business that aggregates the world's news and social media and then uses machine learning to transform all of that data into insights that business leaders can use to make better decisions. And today we're about 160 people and we're in 3 continents. We're in London and New York and Hong Kong. We've raised a bit of venture capital along the way. And still kind of faking it till I make it.
Thank you. And Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm the co-founder of Sushi Dog. Me and my friend Greg started Sushi Dog in 2018 in the summer. We set out to kind of change the style of sushi that was being served. So we sell whole sushi rolls that are freshly prepared in front of you. We started off with a kiosk in Westfield and then opened a second store in Covent Garden last year.
Amazing. So I want to start tonight by just talking first about inspiration, because I've hosted so many panels and afterwards members of the audience have come up to me and said, I really want to start a business, but I just don't know what it is. I know that I want to start one, but I'm not sure exactly the business kind itself. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what inspired you to start your business. Was there like a eureka moment or was it something that just crystallized over time? So Nick, starting with you, tell me a little bit about the idea that caused Sushi Dog.
So I think Sushi Dog actually came from more of a desire to start a business. Me and my friends at the time, we'd spoken a lot about different ideas and concepts and trying to do it and coming up with this perfect kind of plan or perfect idea that we thought was going to be really great. And it got to the point where I think the desire to actually, I was a teacher and Greg worked at Ocado and we thought we don't want to be in our jobs anymore. What concepts can we come up with? And how can we execute them really well? So heard about these sushi rolls that were in Australia and in America, and we both just had a passion to start this business. So kind of got carried away with planning, all right, where do we think this might work in the UK? We know they're popular abroad, so how do we bring this concept about? And that work kind of just snowballed into creating the business. And it wasn't actually, right, we've got this amazing idea that we know is definitely going to be a success. It was more, we've got an idea that we think is good. Let's work as hard as we can to implement it right so that the company will be a success.
Amazing. And I think it's interesting because you don't always have that one idea. I think it's a bit of a misconception that we have this idea that we're super strong about, and it can just be like an inkling that you need to follow. It might be knowing that you want to be your own boss, or you want to have more flexibility, and those things are the known ones, not necessarily the concept itself. David, tell me a little bit about how the idea for Signal AI came about.
Yeah, not dissimilar to what Nick just said. It was I can give you the VC, the venture capital version, which makes it all sound, well ordained and thought through. But it was a kind of random confluence of different events that happened that kind of ended up with the business being started. One of them was my parents run a recruitment company, an executive search business, and for many years they produced a manual newsletter that they sent to their clients. And kind of off the back of that newsletter, I always kind of question why some of the most important CEOs and chairpeople in the country were reading this newsletter produced by a recruitment company. So that was kind of one seed of the idea. The second seed of the idea was, through my own work, I had previously studied and briefly practiced law. And at a law firm I worked in, had to put together these morning client intelligence reports, and were kind of shocked and appalled at the pain I had to go through to do that at an early morning start every day. And then I went and worked for an entrepreneur called Jamie Oliver, the chef. And that was quite an amazing experience to just work underneath an entrepreneur like that and see what it was like to build and start your own company. And so I kind of got the flavor and taste for what it was like to build a business, and that really excited me. Certainly more than working in law. And then finally, I started to become interested in this field of artificial intelligence, which is really a kind of blanket term for a suite of different technologies. But 7-8 years ago, when I started the company, they were still very nascent and just emerging. But there was this, real excitement about this group of technologies and what it might be able to do to transform businesses in the way people operate today. So it was kind of a combination of those three random things. My parents kindly borrowed me their garage, and I met an academic, a professor. We applied for a government grant, and we were awarded this government grant, and that was the original seed funding for the business, and we started the company in earnest in that way. So it was a kind of random series of events, but a desire to start a company, and at the kind of confluence of these different trends that I guess I saw coming together in the market.
It definitely sounds like just being around other entrepreneurs and being in entrepreneurship circles kind of helped shape you a little bit and inspire you and perhaps give you some confidence to do your own thing. It sounds like your parents' company really helped form that for you. And Dina, tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so it was quite an organic process and kind of similar to what the others have said. I didn't necessarily have the idea of what it was going to become, but I had been working as a journalist. I'd done that for about 10 years. And what happened was I'd been doing kind of shifts working in-house on different magazines. I had a job as a commissioning editor at the Sunday Mirror magazine. And after I'd been there for a couple of years, they basically said they didn't have any more work for me. And at that point, I'd been doing a little bit of freelance journalism. And I decided to make a go of it as a freelance journalist and to, make a full-time living. And what I found was fairly soon, I really needed to diversify, which a lot of journalists do. They end up doing things like copywriting and marketing and other things. So I did a course in copywriting, set up what was really more of a side hustle at that time, doing copywriting and PR. And then after my eldest child was born, about 5 or so years ago, I kind of had a little bit of time off and came back to work with a real renewed sense of purpose. And I had seen that there was a bit of a gap in the market for teaching entrepreneurs how to do their own PR, where they weren't quite ready to outsource to an agency yet. And I had created a small 4-week online course and had quite a few people work through that, where they'd learned how to do their own PR. And so when I came back to work, I just had that real moment of thinking, right, what is it that I want to do? And what I loved doing, where my passion was helping entrepreneurs to learn how to do their own PR. And so I started doing PR coaching, and I offered that on a one-to-one basis. And then I created a more in-depth online course for people to work through. And more recently, I've had the PR agency side of things. So I am still offering PR for those people that want to outsource it, but I'm doing that just with a handful of clients and really having the PR coaching and the teaching PR as something where it's for that particular part of the market where they're not ready to outsource it yet.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm sure a lot of people watching this are thinking about starting their own business, but aren't quite sure what the steps that they need to take to kind of get things off the ground. And I think it can be quite overwhelming at the start when you have an idea and you don't know what the first thing to do on a list is. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the practical steps that you guys took to launch your businesses. And I suppose it's also interesting because you have 3 businesses that are in different industries and different sectors, so those steps might look slightly different. So I'd love to hear maybe 3 key steps that you would recommend that you took to get things off the ground. Starting with you, Nick, tell me a little bit about some steps that you took to launch Sushi Dog.
So when we launched Sushi Dog, we literally had no idea what we were doing. I think I described the beginning of it as kind of like a treasure hunt, because we kind of had this idea that we want to sell these sushi rolls. We knew they were good on-the-go snacks. We thought, okay, maybe that will be a product that we think will work in shopping centres because people are moving around their shopping. So the first thing we went to was we contacted Westfield and said, because we wanted to be in Westfield, all right, what do we need to do to set up a kiosk in Westfield? And they came back to us and said, all right, well, you need to have a branding pack. You need to have 100 different things about your concept and what it's going to look like that you can present to us. And then once you can do that, then we'll start to consider, bringing Sushi Dog in as a brand. So that was the first kind of task that we kind of got set, that, okay, so now we've actually got to figure out what is the actual offering in complete, how much is this all going to cost us, how much are we going to spend on our branding, and just start to develop that kind of plan that we could then present to Westfield. And along the way, as you go to each stage, so say we went to see our branding company and we found a branding company, which we probably spent too much money on. And they initially start asking us questions about the brand and the concept that we had no idea about the answers to. And it was then down to us to find out, okay, how are we going to actually hone in and find out what our plan is? So the first thing, speak to lots of people and just get out there, because that's the way that you'll find out how to start the business. The second part was actually just trying to figure out if it was viable. So we, at the beginning, very crudely kind of put together a business plan that said, okay, how much do we think a Sushi Dog is going to cost us to make? How can we form that price? We spoke to different suppliers and tried to get a rough idea of what we thought it'd cost. We then spent ages looking at other comparable businesses. We went to Brent Cross and Westfield and literally stood for hours watching other stores and seeing, okay, how many customers have they got an hour? How much revenue do we think that they're generating a week? And then try to build some projections based on that, just to see, okay, is this actually viable? If we sell at a similar level to these other businesses, are we going to make any money? And we went from there, and just definitely the whole process was about getting to past the next hurdle, and there'd be a load of things that you suddenly find out that you need to do to get there.
It's always when you start and then there's all these things you'd never really considered. I don't think I've ever interviewed someone who hasn't said they spent too much money on their first branding company. It used to always be the way, because people change their minds quite quickly after the first branding that they want to actually do something different with it.
Nick, what you're doing at the beginning.
No, and it's not worth spending the money, because the concept can change quite quickly in the beginning.
For sure.
Yeah, just use Fiverr, that's what I recommend. Nick, tell me a little bit about the steps you took to launch. Oh, sorry, David.
No worries. No worries. Yeah, I mean, I think now has never been a greater or better time to start a technology business, a software company. That's not to say it's easy, but there's just never been a greater time, particularly in a place like London or in England more broadly, because there's just, an amazing access to incredible technical talent, fantastic universities that are producing, wonderful technology, access to capital. There's huge amounts of both venture capital funding and angel investing and government support for starting a company. And there's never been kind of more knowledge and know-how. And I think even from when I founded my company 7-8 years ago to kind of just almost 7 years later, the industry and market here has matured enormously. The amount of knowledge, the number of entrepreneurs, the number of successful companies, people you can turn to and ask advice. And I think it's a very willing and open community actually of people who want to help each other and support each other. So I think the three things though that are probably fundamental and in some ways hardest, the biggest hurdle to get over when, if you want to start a technology company, software company. One, finding the right co-founders. And typically, if you're technical, if you have a software degree or you've done a master's or a PhD in machine learning, you probably need to find someone who's commercial or understands product and can engage with the customer, and vice versa. If you're commercial or more customer centric like I am, you know, the challenge for me was finding the right technical co-founders. And I was very fortunate that, you know, I found two amazing technical co-founders, one through going to meetup.com, which is a business that was acquired by WeWork, where you can meet up with other people who are interested in a specific field. And I went to Meetup and would often get ignored and left alone in these kind of small groups of people who were interested in machine learning and AI, because I didn't have a degree in it. But in the end, I kind of pestered enough people that I met my now co-founder who was finishing his PhD at the time in machine learning technology. And my other co-founder I met through spamming him on LinkedIn. I must have spent about 1,000 spam emails to different people who had VP or head of engineering in their title, who became our CTO. He's since left the business, but at the time he was running engineering teams at eBay. So that was kind of through both just a lot of relentless hard work and a bit of cold emailing and harassing people to get to talk to me. The second, so one is finding those right co-founders. That's not an easy thing to do, but there's ways to go about doing that. And there's places like Entrepreneur First now and other schemes which match up people with different skill sets to start companies. The second is about getting access to capital. And again, I was fortunate. One, I got some kind of pre-seed money through my family who were able to support me. But two, we also applied for this government grant through Innovate UK, which provides funding to match up academic research, cutting edge academic research with putting it into commercial practice. But that's not the only place that you can go and find money. There's a huge network, as I was saying before, whether it's SEIS or EIS funding, which is a tax advantageous way for angel investors to put money into early stage companies, Innovate UK and the schemes that they have, smart grants and other sort of grants that they offer. And then there's this whole kind of venture capital community, which you need to get to a certain maturity to break into that world. But there is a lot of capital and money being invested in early stage companies right now. So it's a great time to go and raise that capital. And then the third thing I think, which is probably most fundamental, is having a great idea. And as we were just discussing before, that idea doesn't have to be fully formed. But I think that if you want to get into technology and you want to raise venture capital and you want to go this route, you have to be solving a really big problem in a very, very big market. Just the nature, the economics of the model for most professional investors is they want really, really big returns. And so they're not looking for a company that can grow to a couple million in revenue. They're looking for the next Deliveroo or the next Uber or the next WeWork or Snapchat, or maybe not WeWork. So they're looking for really big ideas in big addressable markets. And so I think it's super important to be able to kind of tell a really big story about the company that you want to build as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Dina, tell me a little bit about some practical steps. It sounds like it happened quite organically with your business.
Yeah, it did. I think one of the things for me when I first started out was I didn't really know other business owners. So I started joining Facebook groups for other entrepreneurs, and especially, finding communities of other women entrepreneurs as well. And that has been really invaluable. And to this day, I really value being surrounded by like-minded people. And I think when you're first starting out, especially if you're going from taking a side hustle and you're turning that into a full-time business, having other people that have been there and done it, and having people that you can connect with that are in the kind of same headspace as you, because often you can get, people that don't necessarily get it, family members maybe, or friends that don't really understand because they've never done it themselves. And so I think for me, having networks, I used to go to networking events, but a lot of it was online as well. And especially now there's so many networking things you can go to online. That was really, really invaluable, surrounding yourself with the like-minded people. I think the other thing for me was as well, finding a mentor. So I've worked with a few different business coaches, and that has always been invaluable. Again, it's someone that's been there and done that. And so finding that person that's that few steps ahead of you to show you that it can be possible and that, you know, this is how they did it. And getting that, you know, strategic advice and mindset advice and that kind of thing. That's been really, really helpful. I think the last thing is to really just get out and do it. And especially if it is something where you are either not quite sure what your final idea is, and so you're, you know, you don't have to wait for it all to be perfect. Like, you can get out there. And at the start, when I first started it out, I didn't have an idea of who my ideal client was. And I remember doing copywriting jobs for clients that were really not ideal clients at all, and doing work that I actually didn't enjoy. And that taught me, okay, this is what I don't want to do. And that was really invaluable. And you kind of do learn a lot of that as you go along.
Yeah, the stuff that you don't want to do, exactly. I'd love to hear a little bit about purpose and clarity, because I think clarity with business is, I think, one of the hardest things to do, because I think there can be a lot of excitement around launching something, and there's often so many directions you can take a business in. And it can be, I found in my experience, quite overwhelming to know, oh, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? I'd love to hear some thoughts on how you can get clarity with your business and your offering. So David, tell me a little bit about perhaps some questions that you should be asking yourself to kind of find that purpose and clarity. Yeah, today.
Addressed to me. Sorry, will you repeat the question? Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Just some questions that you could be asking yourself about purpose and clarity. So how you can kind of get clear on what your message is and why your business exists.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think purpose has never been more important for businesses, and particularly in difficult times like the one we're all faced with right now. I think having clear purpose is super, super important. And I certainly learned that when I worked before I started this company at Jamie Oliver's business. You know, his company had this concept of a double bottom line. It wasn't just about revenue. It was also about, in some way, giving back and enabling others. And it's a very powerful way to kind of galvanize and align an organization behind that. And I think, and that's been super important for us to think about within the Signal context as well, which is, you know, why are we here to exist? It's not just about, you know, generating revenue. It's about actually doing something that's meaningful and has an impact. And how can we take the technology and tools that we've developed and apply them in really powerful ways that our clients can use to do better and to do more. And we've done some amazing work. You know, an example might be you know, the work we do with Amnesty International, where we let them kind of track and monitor civil rights abuses around the world using our tools and technology, and with the system, the radar that lets them spot these issues and respond to them. And I think, you know, one of the things I've learned is, as the business has grown, and we've moved from a couple of people in a garage to a much larger company and internationally distributed, that becomes even more important, because you're not in a room with each other, able to communicate that purpose or those values on an everyday basis. You can't just turn to the person left or right to you and communicate that stuff. So you then have to start thinking about, okay, how do you codify that? How do you put that down, write it down? How do you make it scalable? How you know, even if you haven't met a new hire, how are they going to be able to behave and espouse the same kind of values that you really care about and matter to you in an organization? And that's really hard. There's no easy answer to doing that. There's a lot of repetition and, as I say, writing it down, talking about it, hiring people against it, you know, performance plans against it, and all the rest of it. So there's a whole bunch of things that you have to do to really make that scale. But as I say, I think that more than anything, as a business goes through both difficult times and growth, becomes really important to think about.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that as you grow, that becomes harder. It's also about the clarity you have internally, not just what you're communicating to your customers or your clients. It's also the internal communication. Nick, tell me a little bit about clarity. Did you know what direction you were going to take Sushi Dog in, or did it kind of crystallize over time? And any thoughts on how you can get clarity?
So I would say we still don't have perfect clarity on where the business is going. It's actually something that we're working really hard on at the moment. And the last kind of 6 months, we've really said to ourselves, okay, what if we want to grow this? You can get to a certain size just by creating a good product and putting yourself in the right locations. But if you really want to grow it to a really large company, there's got to be that drive and that overall kind of mission that we're going for. And we've really struggled to really pin that down and say, okay, this is the one thing that we need to focus on, and this is what's going to get our business to the scale that we want to get it to. To get there at the moment, we're spending a lot of time just asking us the questions and going kind of back to the basics of why we started at the beginning, and what we want how we want our customers to see Sushi Dog. So we're kind of going through a rebranding at the moment, which is part of that, and developing our story so that we can go out to customers and say, you know, this is why you're coming to Sushi Dog. This is the movement that you're kind of buying into when you come to us. Yeah, we think it's massively important, and it's definitely something that you can try and do and nail from the beginning. But I'd also say that every business is going to evolve that kind of purpose over time, and as you grow, that can switch very quickly. Our initial idea was very much focused on shopping centres and saying we want to put it in one shopping centre, and then that will be we can copy that model to shopping centres around the UK. It became very clear at the beginning that wasn't, because it was this on-the-go snack, that wasn't actually the focus that wasn't the reason why our customers were coming to us, and we didn't feel like that was actually a good strategy after meeting and speaking to our customers. So we had to kind of shift and try and find out what we actually wanted, who we wanted to sell our products to. But yeah, at the moment we're kind of getting close to really honing down what our purpose is, but I'm sure in a few years' time that we'll look back at what the work we're doing now and say, actually, we've had to refine it massively and maybe slightly change direction, but hopefully still have that kind of end goal being the same thing.
But you can totally benefit also from having that flexible mindset and not being too stuck on this being the one way to do things or the one customer. And also you're working in hospitality in a very challenging time. So I think it's allowable that you're having to change and shapeshift a lot as well at the moment too. Dina, if people are thinking of starting a business similar to yours with a kind of coaching client output, do you have any advice on the clarity front of attracting the right customers and clients and knowing what your purpose is about?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Nick was saying, sometimes it is something that you gain that clarity over time, and really it is going through often that kind of trial and error and getting clear, like I was saying before, on what you don't want. And I think definitely most entrepreneurs that are doing some kind of coaching have probably started out not really knowing exactly who their ideal client is, not knowing exactly what their offer is, the thing that they do that actually they really love doing and lights them up. And so I've certainly done that. When I first started out, I was doing work that I didn't necessarily love, but it was work that was in demand and people were asking me for, and working with clients that maybe weren't the best fit. And over time, I got that clarity on, this is who I love working with, this is who I can help the most, this is who I get like, you know, brilliant results for, and this is the work that I actually love doing. And so I think sometimes it is really a question of trial and error. But the biggest thing for me is looking at, what do you enjoy doing? Like, what lights you up? What are you passionate about? And that's what you want to be following.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I think it's so true about just being excited about the day-to-day work. If you're deciding to run your own business, you want to have something that you're excited to do, that you feel passionate about. I think it's so important and helps you kind of build resilience as well. So the thing I'd obviously like to come on to now, which is the elephant in the room, which is COVID and how COVID has affected your businesses. I'd love to hear some thoughts on basically how things have been during the pandemic, whether it has been a huge change and how you've navigated those changes. Nick, obviously for you, running a kind of hospitality restaurant basic business, there must have been a huge amount of changes that you had to make, and how have you managed those?
Yeah, definitely. So the timing for us was terrible, because we'd spent a long time kind of trying to get to this stage where we could open a second site. We finally got there in March and opened it on the 13th of March. And what was really strange was 2 weeks before that, we didn't for one second consider that we'd shut it a week later, just because the way that the lockdown kind of occurred so quickly. So we very quickly had to obviously shut both our stores. And this was maybe a mistake at the time, but our first kind of thought was more, okay, there's not much that we could do about this. We couldn't kind of foresee it. All we can do right now is limit costs and try and keep our staff motivated. Because actually a few of our staff had said to us, what we're going to do for the next 2 months, we're going to be really bored. So we kind of came up with this plan that we were going to, I think someone approached us about providing some roles to hospitals. So we made an order for some hospitals, and then actually decided that we've got staff that are willing to volunteer. They want to be kept busy, and we want to kind of stay visual to the public and make sure that we're staying in people's minds. So we set out, raised £5,000, and started just making sushi dogs throughout lockdown that we sent to hospitals around London, which was great for kind of our team morale and just keeping that kind of dialogue with the public, so that we didn't kind of disappear into the abyss, and we kept engaging with our customers. It got to a point there where we kind of had to then assess kind of where things were going, and had to look at the fact that we're still paying rent on sites and having to generate some kind of income. And this is where we maybe made the mistake that we saw other businesses doing roll-at-home kits, and we were fairly late to the party. We kind of in mid-May decided, actually let's jump on this, because initially we thought we serve raw fish, like how are we going to deliver this to our customers in a safe way? So after we'd run out of our funding, we basically in 2 weeks designed these roll-at-home kits. We managed to sort a way of delivering it through one of our suppliers that had like refrigerated vans, and very quickly kind of transferred our whole business model from, which was hospitality business, to charity, and then into this delivery of home kits, which was great for the duration or the rest of lockdown. It was a massive shift, but it was actually it was something really useful for us in generating some revenue. But also we learned a lot that we didn't kind of expect to, just because of the way that we had to change our kind of operation to make these kits, and it's actually influenced how we've run things going forward. Things that are quite technical, but I definitely learned from that experience that when you kind of try something new and you do something different, there's a lot to gain from that experience that you don't actually kind of first initially think will happen. And then so since kind of lockdown broke, then we reopened both the stores, and it's now been an exercise in, previously our revenue was really great, and it was easier to make money. We didn't have to control our costs so much, which now when we look at the end of each month, previously we kind of hadn't got to points where we were looking at our sales and saying we've lost money, and then in July and August we're kind of looking at our sales, we're saying, well, we've got to change something the way we operate, because our revenue's been cut massively by 20%, 25%, and that's our profit margin. So we suddenly started making changes to the business and started running ourselves a lot more efficiently, which has definitely benefited us the last 2 months, and will benefit us in the future, because now suddenly we know how to run the business in an efficient way, because we've had to. And this time round, we're going to most likely shut both our restaurants on Thursday, and we'll be geared up to start selling our roll-at-home kits straight away, and hopefully maximize the revenue that we can from there, and move forward from December, hopefully.
Well, I suppose having done it once, there's lots of learnings along the way, and hopefully it will be easier this time around for everyone, really. David, were there any changes that you had to make because of COVID to your business, and how has it affected you?
Yeah, well, I have to commend Nick, because his business is right on the front line, and clearly was always going to be really impacted by what's gone on, and sounds like really, really tough, but done a fantastic job. So congratulations to him for fighting through. I mean, I think I'm in an exception. I feel quite guilty having listened to that, because I'm in an exceptionally fortunate position, which is we're a software company and an analytics business, and so. And we sell information and insight to businesses. And when there's crises, organizations need better information. And so, I wouldn't say it's been easy. It's been very challenging and complicated last couple of months, since this all kicked off in March. But the business has performed incredibly well, and I'm very proud of that. And we've tried to look at it and try and understand where the opportunity is with what's happening. And as I say, we sell insight to organizations who are trying to respond particularly to crises and figure out what the hell is happening in the world. And so we've tried to lean into that. And for example, for the first time ever, we've sold into the government, which has always been a really difficult industry and sector to sell to. But for now, we were able to get through a lot of the procurement and compliance challenges that normally put barriers in our way. And we've got an amazing contract with Number 10 Downing Street, providing them with kind of data and insights as to what's happening with COVID. And we partnered with one of our big clients, Deloitte, the professional service firm, to produce a product for their clients that would keep their clients informed of supply chain disruptions and travel bans and government stimulus packages, etc. And so again, we were very fortunate that we kind of have a product that, if anything, can help mitigate some of the challenges many businesses are facing. So we've tried to continue to explore how can we use this as an opportunity and try and drive up demand. And the other bit that we're very fortunate is that for an organization like Signal, we can transition to working from home relatively seamlessly. It's, pick up the laptops and go work from home. So I think the bit that's been really important to think about is that, despite all of those good things, people are very affected. It's a time when I think all of us can kind of experience some level of anxiety and trauma and concern about family members, and friends and your business more generally. And so, I think it's been really important for us to be explicit about, things like mental health and well-being, to kind of highly over communicate during this period and let our team communicate with each other as actively as they possibly can. We've done a whole bunch of things, from giving everyone £100 to kit their working from home stuff out, to sending them cookies and goodies, and just little things to try and keep people's spirits high, because it's a very demanding time. And it's not just COVID, there's all sorts of political things going on around the world. An election next week, we have American colleagues. We've had the Black Lives Matter stuff, which has been incredibly powerful, both galvanizing, but also quite concerning for many people who are directly affected. And so, yeah, it's been a very intense time. And if you run a business, I think you're responsible for the people who work within that company. And so we've tried to be thoughtful about how to engage them and make sure their voices are heard, and try and provide an environment that enables people to share and communicate with each other the concerns that they might have.
Yeah, well, I think, compassionate leadership is the thing right now, isn't it? And like you said, even the smallest things, I think at the moment, people really notice and makes them feel good. So it's great that you're doing those things. Adina, any insights on how COVID has affected your business? Has it affected it?
At first, there was so much uncertainty. And so because the clients that I work with are small business owners, when they had businesses that were being affected, they were saying to me, we can't afford to keep working with you, and wanting to pause their contracts and things like that. So that was definitely difficult to begin with. And I was also, homeschooling a couple of kids at the time as well, or trying to, and that's a huge kind of change, to what most people are used to. And I think having that as well, and I think so many people being in a similar position as well, like it was, the start was very kind of like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? What I found as time went on, I had clients also sort of saying to me, we're not sure if we should pause our contract. Can we still get PR at this time? Is this a good time to be NPR? And what happened was, from speaking to journalists, finding that actually it was a really good time to get PR. They were needing content. They were needing, experts and people to interview. And so being able to relay that back to clients and reassure them, we can still get you coverage now, and we can do it in a way that is in the right tone. We're not going to be tone deaf about things. We're going to do things in a way where we can tailor it to put it into the context of being in a pandemic. So from that point of view, we were sort of able to kind of move forward with things. I had an in-person event that I had planned sort of months in advance, and was supposed to be happening at a really lovely luxury hotel, and it was meant to be a full day event, and people had paid several £100s for tickets. And so with that, I wasn't able at first to get a refund from the venue. And so I really wanted to be able to take the event online and do the whole day and give the attendees really great value and for them to not feel like they were missing out on anything. And so that was a bit of a challenge at first, but actually we ran a really great day and got really great feedback, and we made it very interactive. We gave them loads of feedback. We hosted follow-on events so that they were getting additional support further on. And so I think it was being able to, like so many businesses, being able to sort of think on your feet and think, how can I do this slightly differently so that we can take this into account, reassure our clients and give them something that is going to work. You know, if it is online, then so be it.
Yeah, still trying to create that value for people. Amazing. So just before we go to questions from the audience, for anyone watching, if you have a question, feel free to send them to us and we will answer them. I'd just like to hear very quickly about marketing and of course like communication during this time, especially if you're having to change your business or reassure people. Communication is so important. So I'd love to hear what you have found generally have been the most effective routes for marketing for your business and how you've attracted people and told them what you're up to as well. So Nick, when you were changing things with the business, how are you communicating and what channels really worked for you?
So I'd say our communication has always been Instagram heavy. It's where we get the most engagement, and we probably reach the most like the biggest group of our customers. It's also just being a food business. It's, you know, obviously it's very visual, and kind of that's where people they want to see like delicious, great food, and it's an easy way of getting stuff across. That's our main source of kind of communication. You know, having a store in Westfield, that the rent that you pay to be there basically is your marketing budget. So we don't, you know, spend lots of money on other things apart from, you know, what we can do ourselves, basically.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, I feel food on Instagram is always the thing, isn't it? David, on marketing and communication, what have you found to be the best routes for your business?
Gosh, marketing's still a bit of a mystery to me. Maybe I need some of Dina's advice and help. I mean, look, we're a B2B software business, so you know, a lot of our marketing is through direct selling to our customers. You know, picking up the phone and calling them or contacting them through business channels. I think, I think what has been effective for us is telling our story of how we can add value to our customers in a compelling way, and trying to get that, communicate that in the channels where they're active, which is for example places like LinkedIn, etc. What's been more interesting to me and important was what I was mentioning before, which was actually not necessarily marketing and communicating with our customers during this time, but internal comms, how important that has become. I mean, I knew it was important before, because communicating with your team is obviously naturally exceptionally important, but like how important that has been during this period, particularly as we've moved. We've always been co-located, even though we've been in different countries. We've always been in the same office, in these different locations, but always together. And now suddenly you've got 150, 160 people disparate around the world working from home. And I think we've just had to enormously up the cadence and amount of communication that we've done internally, from, you know, weekly all hands, daily stand-ups, kind of social breakouts, you know, sessions where we've got Zoom running, but you're working and people can chat, and tools like Slack, which are incredibly powerful to communicate with one another. And, so that's been really powerful for me over the last 6-7 months, just seeing how both important that is and how impactful that can be in keeping everyone kind of aligned and motivated, even though we're not all together.
Yeah, super important. So important at a time like this. Thank you. And Dina, obviously marketing communications is your industry, but if you have any kind of insights to share on how you've marketed yourself and your business.
I've got to say PR. And if I'm honest, I haven't done as much PR for myself as I could have done, but when I have done it, it's been really, really powerful. So for me, I've been featured in places like Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine, and being able to have that and use that to position myself as an expert has been really, really powerful. I know that there's more that I can do there. I have a Facebook group as well, and that's been really good for connecting with entrepreneurs and using it as a place where I can kind of share content with them and do trainings and things like that. And a lot of them go on to buy as well. And I think on the communication point, part of that was speaking to existing clients and reassuring them that, you know, we can still get media coverage for you now. You know, we're in touch with journalists. There is still opportunities there, and just making sure that we're being really kind of honest and transparent about, you know, things might take slightly longer at the moment because journalists are getting used to working from home and some of them are being furloughed and things like that, but there are still opportunities there. And then in terms of speaking to kind of an audience, like I said, the Facebook group is probably the place where I kind of speak to people the most and communicate with them, and having that and being able to share with them, like, here are some tips, this is some things that you can do right now in the middle of a pandemic, here is how you can change your focus if you're thinking about working on PR, these are some ways that you can do it, these are some ideas of things that you can pitch to journalists, these are the sorts of things they're looking for, and being able to share things like that and just let people know that actually you know, it's a really good time to be focusing on promoting your business and getting yourself out there and building up your following and all that kind of stuff that you get from being featured in the press.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the first time around with lockdown, there was this panic. It was like everything was on hold and you shouldn't be promoting yourself. And now I think we've come to realize that, you know, we have to keep going on and we have to keep working on our businesses and doing what we can. Thank you so much, this wonderful panel. We're going to move over to some questions now. So if anyone has any questions, please send them our way. We've had a question come through. Feel free for anyone on the panel to jump in for this one, which is, how has your Jewish identity influenced your entrepreneurship? Which is a very interesting question. Does anyone have any thoughts to share on that? Nick, I'm going to go to you.
Sure. I don't know if this is strictly Jewish identity, but definitely something that has helped massively is there is a sense in the Jewish community of, well, from what I've experienced, and is people wanting to help young entrepreneurs. And it's been incredible, the amount of support from people that I don't know or friends of friends who have given up hours and hours of their time to help us. And I definitely feel a lot of them, they have the sense of, you know, someone helped them when they were starting their business. And just that's one of the most important things that's helped us kind of build Sushi Dog, is being able to have people that will come in and just give their opinion, who are, you know, they've got different experience. It could be in our industry or different industries. And act as mentors for us. So definitely in the Jewish community, there's fantastic mentors and lots of people that are just more than happy to give up their time and to help.
Yeah, lots of people happy to help. Yeah, and lots of spaces to go. David, do you have anything to share on Jewish identity and how it's influenced you?
No, I'd echo what Nick said. Absolutely. I mean, I think certainly I benefited from that, which is the kind of the Jewish community. Even if I think about my synagogue, my local synagogue, you know, some of the relationships made there with people much older than myself have led to, you know, fundraising or legal advice or business advice more generally, and so has been fantastic to plug into. I guess maybe this is a stretch, but I think, you know, I certainly feel like running a business, you have to have strong values if you're going to do it effectively. And a lot of those are about the way you treat people and how you create an environment where people feel, you know, safe and they have an ability to grow and flourish and all those sorts of things. And I'd hope maybe that some of the values that we espouse have in some way been kind of taught or inherited from some of the Jewish principles that I admire. So certainly from things that I've learned from my family, and what my parents are entrepreneurs, from the way they run their business. And I think, you know, is that Jewish identity? In part, probably, yes, it might be, you know, and I'd hope it's the, you know, the good things that we espouse in some way can be born from some of those things that I've learned in that context.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Dina?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with David in terms of the values. part of it, and possibly always, I think there's such a strong focus on family as well within the Jewish religion. And I think for me, running my own business, it's been really important that it's something that I can work around my family. And that's such a big part of why I do what I do. When it comes back to what's the why behind your business, it's actually being able to do something that kind of I love and that I feel is making a really I'm doing something positive in the world, and it's something that's supporting my family and allows me to work around them as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So we have another question that's come through from James, who asked, what's the key to building a successful team? How important is the team? I'm going to direct this one to David, because as we know, you have quite a large team, so I think you could have some interesting things to share on how you've built that successful team.
Yeah, gosh, probably more things I've learned the hard way and the mistakes I've made. Yeah, actually, I mean, on the topic of values, I mean, I think value, for a long time, I was convinced that I was just hiring for competency or skills or experience. I think rarely those are important, but secondary to finding people who share your values, because at the end of the day, you can find great people, but if they don't gel with the culture and the values of the business, they normally don't last. But if you find someone with great values, with values that certainly align with the business and the culture, as long as they're adaptable and they can learn and they're coachable, then in the end, that normally wins out. So that's certainly one thing I've learned, and that's really hard to hire for, but actually super, super important. The other point, which I mentioned just there was I think adaptability, coachability is, and normally that comes from, I think, having high EQ, and having a good sense of self-awareness, because certainly in a business like Signal, every year we're changing, we're growing, it's growing so fast that actually normally the role that you were doing a year ago is definitely not going to be the role that you're going to be doing in a year's time. The business will have grown. And so if you can't grow with the company and evolve and be adaptable, then normally that's where challenges or issues or tensions arise. So those are two things that I've certainly learned through a lot of mishiring.
Trial and error, but learn through experience. Thank you so much. So the final question tonight is from Deborah, who says, thank you so much for this evening, and how much she's enjoyed the event. Her question is, what is the best piece of advice when starting out to set out a business plan? Nick, did you have a business plan? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, we did write a business plan. I'd say I've seen lots of different business plans and there's no set model, and definitely probably sitting down and saying, I've got to write my business plan probably sounds like quite a big, scary thing that you might never get around to doing. I would say write a business plan for yourself rather than for anyone else. In a business plan, you want to clarify what you're actually trying to achieve and get down as much of the stuff the ideas and stuff that's in your head, and try and form it into something that actually can look like a business. And that might be as simple as just, all right, this is what I need to do to achieve my goal, which could be opening a restaurant or anything for that matter. And trying to go step by step to what you need to do to get to that point. And yeah, use it as your actual plan. Don't use it as something that you are showing to someone else or you're worried about writing for someone else. Just get it done rather than faffing and worrying about not doing it right. Because I think the first thing it should be for you, and then show it to some people that maybe have seen a load of business plans before, and they might tell you to change stuff up if you're taking it to investors or, but yeah, get something down first, and don't worry about the actual starting it, because that's probably the hardest bit.
Yeah, about making it perfect. Just start.
Yeah.
David, would you echo that? Did you have a set business plan?
Yeah, there's a good Mike Tyson quote, isn't there? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. That's a bit like building a business. Yeah, I don't know if I'm a big believer in business plans. I've written a few fundraising decks in my time. Most business plans I've ever tried to write normally aren't true from the moment I finish them. So, you know, I think for me, it's about, yeah, find a problem you're passionate about, you know, figure out a way that you can solve that problem in a really differentiated way. And then just iterate on that and find more customers who want you to solve exactly the same problem over and over again, and just kind of do that in an ongoing feedback loop. And the rest kind of almost takes care of itself, I think. And normally business plans are quite not very useful at achieving that.
Well, if you're fast moving, I suppose they can become outdated quite quickly as the business gathers momentum. Dina, did you have a business plan?
No, I didn't have a business plan. And I think that probably, you know, if you want to do a business plan, you can probably find something on the internet, or like, you know, speak to people who've done it, who can tell you how to do it. But I don't think it needs to be something that you have to have. I know so many entrepreneurs that are running incredibly successful businesses, and pretty sure that they didn't have business plans. So I think, yeah, like if it's something that, I guess if you're using it for funding and that kind of thing, and it's something that you can get help with, absolutely, like find someone else who's done it and get them to help you with it, but don't feel like it's something that you have to have when you're starting out.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much to our wonderful panel for tonight. I've really enjoyed it. I hope everyone watching has too. If you've enjoyed this event, we have another one in a month's time with a different set of entrepreneurs on a panel, and you can find out more about that on the JW3 website and through their social media. So just like to say a massive thank you to our panelists, and we hope to see you guys very soon. Thank you, guys.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to Angelica and all our panelists. As Angelica mentioned, we'll be back on Monday, December the 7th, with Laura Jackson from Popcorn Shed, James Gold from Skinny Dip, and Joel Kern from Make Believe Worldwide. Please join us for that evening. And if you can support JW3, please donate in the link in the chat. Have a wonderful evening.